This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm so excited to be speaking with Gretchen Mol about Millers in Marriage. How are you, Gretchen?
You. Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I had the chance to see this film at its premiere in Toronto, which was a fun chance with a big audience to get to see it. And I know you were there as well. What was it like to see it
Yes,
that way?
I know it was my first time, which isn't my favorite thing to do. But with this film, I felt really relaxed about it because I had so much faith in the script and the actors and Ed, and it was just nice to be actually in a room with so many people, and you could really hear them laughing and listening, and so it was really fun. Yeah, and you don't get to do that as much anymore.
Yeah. I also think this is like a true ensemble movie. There are just so many characters, and you can't necessarily pinpoint who the lead is. How did
Yes,
you
yeah.
become attached, and who else was already involved at that point?
Oh boy. At the time, it was quite early on. I think he might have even had another actor attached to one of the roles, but it sort of shifted around a little bit, and I got the script with a kind of Ed just wants you to read it and see who you feel, you connect to, which character. And um there were a lot of great female parts. And so it felt exciting, but I did immediately connect with Eve. And so we had a conversation and it just sort of took off from there. And yeah, so it was really fun. I just did immediately think that's probably the one for me, even though it would have been fun to also do. I think Juliana's part was really interesting too. Um, yeah, so
I think her part is a little edgier and not necessarily angrier, but I think there's a difference just in terms of how much they assert themselves. And it's interesting to see them as siblings. What did you like most
yeah.
about
Um, and it's true. I think Maggie's character, in terms of siblings, it's just that kind of order of things. And, they both obviously end with Ed's character as well. They all come from the same parents, and those parents were a little bit dysfunctional, seems like. And but it comes out in all of them in different ways. And Juliana's character was probably much more of the caretaking older sibling. And it feels like she's operating within those. I mean, you talk to her about it, but I felt like Eve was just more vulnerable, and I loved the journey that she took in this because you really did see a real change in her, and it was kind of about finding her own voice. And I think she was probably on the journey when she was in her, whatever it would be, her late 20s, in that time in the 90s when she had her hit with Mag Scrambler and things were really starting to happen. And then, kind of the gauntlet came down and she made a decision to get married to maybe the wrong guy, although she had beautiful children with him, and she kind of took herself out. And I think that little dream and the little voice, the beginning of a voice, just kind of got squashed. And so this is about second chances or second acts, kind of coming out the other side of that when your kids are grown and saying, who am I now? And is it over? And do I have anything to say? And can I say it? And she meets or re-meets Benjamin Bratt's music journalist character, and he's kind of a catalyst for just that, just bouncing those ideas and getting that sort of thing started in her, reignited. So
Yeah,
I did love the character's journey in that regard, that it was so clear and it was so necessary.
I think she also, out of the siblings, seems to go on the best journey of self-realization, where everyone else sort of is trying to figure it out, but she, I think, actually gets somewhere with it, even if that's not necessarily to a place of bliss and knowing what she wants, but at least knowing what's out there, what there could be,
Yeah.
what a different life could have been.
Yes. And I think that idea, I think at our age, kind of saying it's a journey and you're on the journey. And so how fun that it can happen at any time. You're still learning, you're still figuring yourself out. And, you make some bad choices along the way, but it's not over, and in fact, you might have more to offer after a few mistakes.
I have to assume that Patrick Wilson is a nice guy, but he seems to be very skilled at playing like these perfectly detestable people who the way they act like they could be okay, but then they just push it so far that you have to really root against them. How do you work on making a relationship, on screen with somebody who, again, probably a nice actor, but just so good at
Lovely.
playing so oily?
Yes, he was a really good drunk. It was fun to watch his variations because sometimes it would be funny. He would do like a one that was kind of funny, and then it would just be these, this sort of despicable, angry person. And it was really like, wow, if how does this woman stay in this relationship with this person? And she just takes it and takes it. And you realize like that's really the toxicity of alcoholism and the sort of the toll it takes on a relationship over time, where one person it is kind of, real abuse. And it kind of has to get to a certain point, a bottom, for her to say, to stand up. And it's hard for her. I think that was really the struggle for me too, was knowing, myself, that it would be hard to put up with that shit. And then kind of knowing that this person doesn't have the tools, she's never developed that tool to like really stand up for herself. And you can see her siblings around her saying, get the fuck out. Like he's such an asshole, and she just can't see it. She loves him.
And I think
It's
not only in contrast, but Benjamin Bratt's character is like the other, could have beens in this film, very idealized. Like there isn't really anything to not like about him. He's so accommodating, so nice. Does he
Yes.
feel real, or is that like we're sort of seeing this a little bit through Eve's eyes of like he has to be that great because of what she has now?
He feels that feels really like Benjamin. I don't know. He was so well cast and so sweet in the role and seemed to just take to it in that way that the relationship really had that element. I mean, I was so grateful to have those scenes to play in contrast to this sort of tension being in the house, those tense scenes, and then a time where she really gets to blossom because of somebody's kindness and somebody's ability to see her in a way that she's not able to see herself at that point. And it's lovely that he is this catalyst. But then I think the other piece of it that I loved is that that wasn't it. She has to make the break on her own, and it's really about her own journey. It's not that anyone can solve anyone's problem.
I
Yeah.
think that's also true to life because I feel like this isn't a movie about just having affairs and the appeal of something coming along. It's about the difficulty of what does that mean and what does it actually look like to know that doing that kind of thing will affect your life and you'll have to live with your choices. You have to decide, is it worth it? Is that, or do you want to, stick it out somewhere, which obviously these characters have been doing for quite a long time.
Yeah, yeah. There's some scars that have to be undone for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in an ensemble this big, while there are some great, dinner table scenes, I'm sure there are certain cast members you would have liked to work with more, but just didn't have enough overlap. Is there anyone in particular that you feel like that was the case?
I mean, I honestly loved all of them. There's one scene in the movie, and I wasn't at there were a couple dinner table scenes that I wasn't at. And then we did shoot one scene that didn't make it into the film, sadly, but it was the one time I was on set with all of the rest of the actors. And there were so many overlaps at this point. So many like 6 degrees of separation, but even less, I mean, we all had known each other from such and such time, or knew each other's spouses, or so there was so much connection, and it was just such a comfortable set to be on. And everybody, it was such an amazing actor. And it just, that part of it was such a joy to come to the table with these elements in place. It just felt like I hadn't worked on anything in so long. And we all said it, we all acknowledged it, that, it's so rare to just come onto a set and have conversations like these, that on screen, that we're shooting just talking. And hashing it out and figuring it out. And there just are so few films being made like that anymore. So that was the real joy of it.
Well, as soon as I knew I'd be speaking to you, I thought about some of your past roles that have really stuck with me. And in coincidental timing, I spoke with Michael Pitt and Jack Houston yesterday for the new
Oh,
film Michael stars in and Jack directs. And
Rick.
I always go back to Boardwalk Empire and that very memorable, a different kind of problematic family relationship, I'd say, that you shared with Michael. But that show, I mean, it's 15, almost 15 years old now. How does it still sort of sit with you?
It's one of my favorite jobs ever. I was so fortunate to be able to work on that for the time I did. I think it was almost 5 years in my life. And so for actors to just be able to stew in that world and a character for that amount of time is just it doesn't happen. And especially with that kind of the level of talent, the level of writing and production value and everything on that was just it no it doesn't come along, and it's not lost on me. It wasn't lost on me at the time. It was just a really special, and also for me to play a character in a way that I don't think I had played anyone like that before. I really got to explore like some real darkness. And before that, I hadn't really been cast in that way. And since then, I've gotten more like creepy moms than I need. But I mean, that was a very particular character. She was capable of anything. And I was just, kind of just honored to that they handed me that kind of material week after week.
Well, the
Yeah.
next project I want to ask you about is one I'm sure you don't get asked about as much, which is a shame. When I was at NYU my freshman year, I got a chance to go to the Angelica Film Center and see a lot of really great movies that were playing all the time. And one of the ones I remembered that year, which I have not heard much about since, is Puccini for Beginners, which I thought
Oh,
was a really, really lovely film. What memories do you have from making that?
I loved like Maria Magenti. It was just a New York City little indie movie, but all of the Justin Kirk and Elizabeth Reeser and Juliana Nicholson, like it was just this amazing group of New York actors and so much fun. I didn't realize it played there. And the funny thing is I used to work at Angelica Film Center. I was an usher. I don't know when you were there. Well, I clearly wasn't working there anymore when you went to see it, but that was such a fun, that's such a great theater, and I'm glad you saw it there. Yeah, that was just one of those little movies I don't hear that much about, and I'm happy to hear that you saw it. It was fun.
We also
Got to learn
were
how to
every
glass blow.
That's cool. Well, every movie that I saw there, they were always playing the trailer for Flannel Pajamas, which stars Justin and Julianne also, but like every single thing. And so it was funny to see them again in another movie that was right around the same time.
Yes, yeah. It was a great era of making independent film. And I do feel like there's a little bit more in the air now. I've just been to a couple amazing films up here where I live that, I mean, Honora and what was the one I saw yesterday? Why am I blanking on the name of it? It's terrible. Anyway, I'm just having one of those like on the spot moments. Oh my gosh, what was it? Anyway, it was so good. It was the Canadian film about that girl, and my old ass.
My old ass, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a great choice.
yeah. Great films. There's some great ones this year.
I was going to ask you what you've seen recently that you've liked, but you answered that already, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What do you have coming up?
I did a really lovely film that in the fall called Horse Girls, with a first-time female director named Lauren Meyering. She wrote the script. It's a mother-daughter relationship, and it's really beautiful. Um, I'm excited to see what they end up doing with that. That was an independent film. And then I just worked on this Mark Wahlberg movie, Play Dirty, for a couple days. So that was fun. That was totally different. Um, yeah, so I'm not sure. And then after that, I'm not sure what's going to be next.
Well, it's so nice getting to talk with you, and I look forward to seeing whatever comes next.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you too.